so many times the church and the youth worker, we make all these assumptions, but we've never once paused long enough to say, hey, but what do you really need?
That's right.
Yeah,
and then,
I love that.
And then when they tell you, believe them.
You know better than anyone else that culture is changing.
Youth ministry is complicated, and doing it by yourself is really challenging. So
Let's rethink it together. Sound like a game day.
welcome to the Rethinking Youth Ministry Podcast.
That was exactly like I imagined. Welcome back to the Rethinking Youth Ministry Podcast. My name's Ashley, and I'm so excited to talk today about rethinking how we partner with the parents of Gen Z and Gen Alpha. And I'm so excited who we have in the room. So I want you to meet them. Let's throw it to my left.
Hey, what's up? My name's Shane Sanchez, and I'm a part of the team here at Orange Students. I'm the director of high school content, but have been in youth ministry for a while as a youth pastor, both out in Arizona and in Georgia. And I'm also a parent, which means I know that I do not know much. That's what I've discovered. As soon as I became a parent, and now 4 times over, we have 4 kids, which is just wild. So yeah.
And they're beautiful.
Thanks. Yeah, I think so too.
Charlie.
Hi, how are you?
Welcome.
Thanks. So excited to be here. So I serve here at Orange as an Orange Student Specialist, and I'm a mom of 2 grown daughters, and this is my 25th year working with students.
So glad
awesome.
you're here.
Thanks.
Is it my turn?
Matt.
All right. Thank you. My name is Matt. I'm the Next Gen pastor at New Life Fellowship Church in Queens, New York. We have a really interesting, fun, cool, very diverse church. We've got 75 nations represented, 110, 20 languages, something like that, spoken in our community around our church. It's a mission to go and get $20 from the ATM because there's like pages and pages of languages to go through before you even get to English. I've been working with students for the last 20 years. I have one child who gives me a run for my money. He gives me all I can handle and then some more. I need naps every day. It's
How old is he?
Naps are great.
He will be 3 in October.
Wow.
He's running wild.
I mean, as wild can be. It's crazy.
How many nations are there? Like total?
More than 75.
But not many more.
No, there's a good amount more.
You have a lot of the world represented in your church.
I mean,
At his ATM.
And
our
your
ATM,
ATM.
absolutely.
But I mean, that is really significant.
Yeah.
And like, that's a lot of different kinds of parents too.
I was just going to say that
Yes.
perspective in this conversation
Wow, yeah.
matters a whole lot.
That's
Yeah.
right.
So I'm excited to tackle that.
Great.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. If you're anything like us, you've been wrestling with the topic of partnering with parents, post-pandemic, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, studies coming out. I'm so excited to dive into this conversation. Let's start off with the question of all questions. What is it that you have been rethinking when it comes to partnering with parents?
Wow. That's good.
Communicating with them about more than just announcements. Like, oh, hey, here's the schedule for the next 3 months of things for you to show up at or bring your kids to. Like, we've just been rethinking what it means to actually partner versus what it means to just distribute information.
Yeah.
And those are 2 very different things from each other. So
Yep.
we're kind of like reevaluating our communication strategy.
Let's camp here for just a second before we hear what you're rethinking, because I want to talk about this. What kinds of things should we be communicating to parents besides announcements?
All the things. Well, first of all, we have to see parents as people apart from their children. So like if our whole relationship with them is based in, let me tell you what I need you to do for your kid so that you can accomplish the mission that I have for my ministry, you're not actually partnering with them. You're trying to get them to work for you, when in fact partnership is actually that, like hand in hand working together on a particular thing. So we decided, hey, we need to resource them. Like, hey, how can there's things that you're trying to figure out as a parent. Like, let's resource you to figure out those particular things, not just like, let me tell you about what we're talking about with your kid in church this week so that you can go home and talk about that thing as well. No, like, let's talk about what it means to be a better listener as a parent. Let's talk about what it means to invest in the relationships that you have aside from your relationship with your child, be that with your spouse, a significant other, your friends, whatever the case might be.
So good.
So that you can live a full life, so that your faith is growing and developing as well, in addition to the work that we're doing with your children.
I love that.
But did you ask your parents what they needed help with, or did you assume?
Oh, that's good.
Both.
Okay.
So we put out we put out surveys to ask parents, hey, what's the stuff that you're trying to figure out in this season? We did that during the pandemic. Yep. We did that post-pandemic. We compared the answers to see how things had shifted. And now we're also just assuming some things from our own life. Like I'm a parent, the people on my team are parents, and I'm wondering, you know what, if I'm struggling to figure out should my kid be pooping this much? I'm guaranteeing you that there are other parents who are asking the same question as well. So we are assuming some things based on experience, but we're also having a lot of conversations with parents because listening is such a huge thing.
Yeah.
So one thing that we started doing was like, we asked the question, what would it look like for us to create space to just listen to parents? No judgment, no fixing, no advice. Just let them in a non-judgmental place, offering them calm presence, and just listen to them.
Listening sessions, I think, are so important because I think so many times the church and the youth worker, we make all these assumptions, but we've never once paused long enough to say, hey, but what do you really need?
That's right.
Yeah, I love that.
And then when they tell you, believe them. That's huge.
That's an amen moment right there. Yes.
But if they tell you they need something, believe them. And if you don't have it yourself to give them, be a conduit. Find them the place and the space that they can get what they're telling you that they actually need. And so the big things that come up for us again and again, I need reliable childcare. Well, I can't really do a lot about that because I would take it for myself first. So if anybody wants to babysit my child, you can email me right here. I'm just kidding. But like, when they tell us things, the hard work I find is offering them that non-judgmental presence and resisting the temptation to fix things that they're not asking you to fix. They're just inviting you to listen to.
That's good.
Well, and I think so often as parents, especially as a parent of grown kids and as they were coming through ministry and college and all the things, I didn't feel like there was a space cultivated for a non-judgment type comment, right? Because I felt, especially when your kids are dealing with mental health or eating disorder, like all the things, when you bring that up, the room goes quiet and it gets a little nervous. And never has a church stepped into a place said, well, let me resource or let me help you with that. Because they get a little nervous too because they don't have the right answer.
That's it. And I think we have to stop trying to be the answer for everybody. Like, hey, there are therapists in our congregation that we can point you to. There are people who have studied these things that we can point you to. Like we say all the time, like Jesus is the answer to like all of life's questions. And that's true. I believe that firmly. But sometimes Jesus and therapy go really well together. And I think it's okay to understand, hey, these are my limitations. This is what I can do for you. But I can also be really honest about what I'm not capable of doing for you. And I want to get you to the right place where you can get what you need in this particular season of parenting.
Yeah, that's really good.
So another follow-up question to what you said you were rethinking. What led you to that?
Parents telling us that they weren't feeling served, that they felt like we only exist in your mind to bring our children to you, and that's it. Or we're working against each other. So it's like I punish my kid. And I actually did this in youth ministry years ago. A kid would come to me and say, hey, my parents won't let me go on the retreat this weekend. Can you talk to them for me so I can go? And I would go back to the parent and I would say, hey, your kid wants to come with us on the weekend. I think it'd be really good for them to come. You should let them come with us.
Hi, we've all been guilty, right? Have you all not been guilty of that 100%. Too? Like so much.
Convict us. Bring it on.
I have to convict myself first. Like, I'm not partnering with that parent. No. I'm actively working against what they're trying to do in the life of their child. I can't say, hey, I'm going to partner with you, but I'm also going to work against what you're trying to do. I am going to be an obstacle. I'm going to take your kid's side over yours every opportunity that I get because I need your kid to like me. I need your kid to relate to me. I need your kid to learn from me because my job is on the line. If they don't like me, I won't feel good about what I'm doing if they're not connecting with what I'm saying and doing. And so I need to be on their side. What you inadvertently end up communicating is, I see this child, you're in the way. You are a means to an end, and the end is your kid. And that's all I really care about. And that's all I'm really interested in. So when I realized that, I was like, something has to change. We just need a different approach. And actually there's a book on the table here, what most parents aren't telling you. And if I remember correctly, that idea is actually in there as well. As parents communicating, we need the church to give us more than just information. We need the church to give us resources. And to see us as people.
100%.
So good.
One of the areas where I think that plays out the clearest is actually in your volunteer teams. So what you just described, I would look for in interviews with potential small group leaders. Like if I got a gauge or a vibe that they were going to struggle with that, or in maybe wanting to be the student's friend more so than the partner for the parents, or that there was anything about, the way that they would answer questions or the way that they were just processing what it would mean to be involved in student ministry, that positioned them in a space in between the parent and the student, those would be massive red flags.
Yeah.
I just knew like that's not within the strategy that we're aiming for.
Yeah.
And you have to have a volunteer team full of people who you're training to think the same way, because you as a ministry leader, you can embody this and think the same way that you're describing, Matt, and Charlie. But as soon as you have, I'd say, more than a volunteer, it can be derailed.
Yep.
So regardless of how many people you're in student ministry with, you got to make sure you have people who think this way as well to be able to stay on track with partnering with parents.
Yeah. And the truth is, if you value it, you have to develop it in people.
Yeah.
Like I can't have an expectation. I'm going to recruit a volunteer and you will instantly on day one know this is how I want you to relate to parents.
Yep.
Because I can think back a few years before I got married, before I had a child, relating to a parent was the scariest thing in the world.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, what is it that I possibly have to say to you who's living an experience that I myself do not have?
Yeah.
Totally.
But I think it's something we can all grow in, because at some point in our lives, all of us have had a parental figure in our lives.
Yep.
Two, we're interacting with parents all the time.
Yeah.
If you create space to actually listen to them, you can learn a lot about how they want you to relate to them and how you can have conversations with them by walking up to a parent and closing your mouth and opening your ears.
Yeah.
I love that. And I would say, as someone, the only one in this episode who doesn't have children, I've definitely felt that before, but I think, someone smarter than me said, my role is to be the best question asker, not answer giver. And that has totally reframed conversations with parents. And I remember when I was in my early 20s, I just didn't feel old enough to talk to parents.
Yeah.
I just didn't feel, and I'm like, I think had somebody framed it that way, and if I had resources to share rather than answers to give, I feel like I would have felt so much more empowered as a young leader. So I'm so glad you said that.
Can I say though too that I think you do have a lot to give. Like I think younger leaders, single leaders, leaders without kids have so much to offer to parents. Like even just encouragement. I mean, Ashley, the way you started this conversation, you complimented my kids. Those things matter to parents. They may seem simple, they may seem small, but they're acknowledgement of these little humans that we're doing our best with. But at times we just need a nap. Like Matt said, there are ups and downs and waves. So I actually feel like people who aren't parents or aren't parents yet, depending on their life journey, have so much to offer to families as a whole. So I just don't want to downplay that importance.
I agree, Shane. Thank you for including me. Charlie, what is it that you've been rethinking when it comes to partnering with parents, especially Gen Z, Gen Alpha?
I know I'm feeling a little nervous about this actually, because I think that I know that all parents care about their kids, but oftentimes white middle-class people like myself assume a certain thing. And that is what we need to give parents. When in reality, showing up on a doorstep with a bag of groceries, with showing up in a way for childcare, showing up in so many different ways than with answers, communication, retreats, all the things. I think we need to rethink how we're approaching parents and I think we need to rethink how we're approaching families, because they all look different, and especially now.
That's right.
Yep.
That's good.
That's so good.
Yep.
How do you do that when you have more than 5 families?
Well, that's why you have volunteers, right?
Yep.
But it's how you train your team to understand who the families are coming into your ministry, right? I served in a church where it was really outreach based. And so we had the church kids and the church families. But that was one group. And then the majority of the kids did not look like the regular church family that had been attending. And so it's training the people in the church to realize, hey, these are the people in your community. These are the people that your students are going to school with. This is the life around you. So then how do we then be the church for our community? And it starts with the parent and caring for the parent. Just because a parent does not show up, for your meeting doesn't mean they don't care about their kids. It doesn't mean they don't care about their kids' faith. It doesn't mean they don't care about their kids' character. It's just that being a parent is hard.
Yeah. I think what you're talking about really speaks to what I've been rethinking. I think we have to rethink the assumptions that we have of the families that we serve. One is like that was a hunch, and that was something that I had heard as a youth pastor said around Orange and from, leaders in this organization. But two, I know, Matt, you referred to what most parents aren't telling you, which is this resource that we have. What that uncovered is that some of the assumptions were right, but many of them were wrong. And I think with hard data, like what exists in that resource, you can see parents more clearly. And when you shift your assumptions to assumptions that they care about their kid more than I ever could, that the makeup of a family may look different than what I've always thought it did, that every parent and every family needs the same type of resourcing and support, and you switch to a posture of curiosity and discovery, it changes everything about the way that you view how to best partner with parents, but how to best partner with families. So I just think we have to lay down any of the assumptions that we've held, any of the stereotypical assumptions that in youth ministry we've held, which is like if, a parent's picking sports over student ministry. After digging into some of the research, one of the things that parents are looking for in different phases of a child's life are healthy mentors. And I had this moment that I was like, and I know we have like small group leaders, and I think that is really important, but they may be looking for things that they're finding in sports, that they're finding in these other things that their kids are involved in. And maybe they're not finding it in certain church circles that they're a part of. So I'm like, let's be honest about it. Let's not get upset about it. Instead of going, why won't parents prioritize what we're creating? Maybe we have to ask the question of, what do parents really want? How do we learn that? And then how do we serve those needs truly? I think that's been everything I've been rethinking.
One thing that happens when you stop assuming is you also stop blaming. Because then you can operate from a place of, I actually understand what's happening here. Because maybe I'm not thinking about how tired a parent is, or maybe I'm not thinking about, this week I've got like 600 things to do. And so bringing my kid to church has to get bumped down the list because I can't do everything. But when we live in that space of assumption, notice like we almost never assume like great things about people and situations. Our assumptions are almost always in this negative space where we assume the worst things. And so it's like, if we can stop assuming, just create space for some conversations and get to know parents, like just don't know things about them. Get to know them. Hey, don't say to a kid, hey, what does your mom do? Go to that kid's mom and say, what do you do? Like, tell me about your life. Tell me about your situation. Help me understand who you are. Not only you're modeling something for your other leaders, who can then, hey, Shane went up to that parent and had this conversation. I could do that. That's easy. But the other thing that you can do with that is you also demonstrate to that parent that you care about them too. You care about them beyond, hey, I need transportation for this group of kids to this next thing. You have a van. And so I need your van this weekend. Which, let's be real, sometimes we need the van.
We do need the van.
I mean, we're not playing here.
We need the van. We need the van, but we need to care about the person driving the van.
Or you got a sweet house and there's a D now.
That's it.
Oh, that's right. You got a pool?
Your favorite leader's hosting at that house, right? Or you.
Okay, but we talk about all these things, but I think so many times the youth workers budget doesn't reflect that parents are a priority.
That's so true.
Like a lot of times people aren't budgeting for that. And I talk to a lot of young youth workers, like I coach them a lot. And they're like, you budget for parents? You should be budgeting for parents far past bringing in a counselor to talk to them on a mental health night or whatever. Like, how else are you prioritizing them?
That shifted at a church that I was a part of in Arizona once we embraced a next gen strategy. So Matt, I know you can speak to this. That's what you do. But we got a next gen pastor for the first time. Shout out Kenny Conley, friend of the pod, friend of Orange. But he brought in that strategy and it changed the way we budgeted. All of a sudden, it's like, wait, no. a priority across all family ministry are going to be dollars set aside to resource, equip, and partner with parents. And just having, okay, let's be real. Student ministry leaders have a bad rap when it comes to partnering with parents. I don't see this as often with kids ministry leaders. Normally, when you look at a church, from my perspective, you assume that the kids ministry leaders have this figured out. The youth ministry leaders potentially could care less. The next gen strategy, what that did was align all of us to go, no. At every phase in a child's life, the relationship with the parent matters. Good. And as soon as you embrace that vision change, that really just that strategy adjustment, it reflects everything you do in the ministry. So that was big in the context I've been a part of.
Good.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to the need. Like when a kid is in elementary school, you need the parent.
Yeah.
For everything.
Yep.
When a kid gets to middle and high school, they have more independence than a kid in elementary school does.
Yep.
So the parent is not as necessary, and we can view them that way.
Yep.
Like you are not necessary for me to have your kid come to church even.
Yep.
Where I'm from, like kids are on the bus and the train to come to church. There's no such thing as, hey, mom and dad, can I get a ride to church? It's like, no, I'm not giving up my parking spot. Like it's not happening because there's no driveway. It's like, I mean, that exists, just not where we are. And so it's like these kids are moving on their own. And so it's really easy to forget about their parents and to not even think about what partnering with parents looks like.
Yep. I had a conversation once with a high school ministry peer, and we're talking about partnering with parents. And this person actually, what they said to me was, why would we partner with parents of high schoolers? Shouldn't we be helping high schoolers separate from their parents because that's where they're about to head once they enter college? And once I got past my initial frustration, I did have a moment of like, oh, yeah, I could see why a lot of, especially high school leaders specifically, would be thinking that way. But, it's thankfully because I've been surrounded with minds like all of yours, I chose to think differently about that, but also I've seen the fruit, not just in my context, but in the context of other people who prioritize parents, of what that can become. So I'm just like, gosh, if you're listening and you're going, what? I'm leading high schoolers or, students, like you said, parents aren't involved. They're not champions of the ministry. And you might be tempted to check out or go, I should be equipping them to be separate from their parents. I would rethink.
Hi, as a parent who was terrified when her kids went to college, no, we need you more.
Yeah.
And no one at the church cared about me anymore because my kids had left.
Exactly.
So what do we have for you? Nothing.
That's it.
There's nobody anymore. Once your kids are out of ministry, nobody's talking about the parent anymore.
Yeah. Well, that was my gut reaction. That was more of my gut reaction was like, if not us, then who? Like this is the unique place where the church can step and go, hey, we care about people holistically, and a family is a big part of your holistic makeup, whatever that looks like in your context. So we have to care for these people that are a part of their family.
Yeah.
So I think once you get past the stereotypes, once you get past the rhetoric, once you get past maybe even some of the tradition, you get into a space where you're just like, this makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I'm throwing a curveball.
Please.
Okay.
Something I've been rethinking. On behalf of middle school ministry, I don't know the answer to this, by the way. This is just, I'm rethinking it, so please help a sister out. When I look at like Gen Alpha, the back end of Gen Z, you're looking at the most connected generation that's ever existed. But what does it look like to partner with parents of middle schoolers when it comes to their phone? Because I feel like I've been having conversations with parents of middle schoolers and I felt so convicted. I'm like, am I literally doing the opposite of what I think I'm doing? Because it's like this tension you live in that space, because you want to honor when the parent feels the kid is ready for a phone, when the kid is ready for a social media platform. At the same time, you want to be present for the kids who have no rules about that and are on every single platform with no limitations. And it's really confusing in the middle school space because I want to partner and honor that parent. But from some of the feedback I'm getting, it's like we're actually creating more tension for them between their kid because they feel like they're missing out on something. And so what do we do in that space?
Well, Well, I think our silence proves that we don't know either.
Yeah.
No, but it's a real tension because I worked at one church and then a different church 6 miles down the road. None of those kids had phones, and the other church, every kid had a phone. Yeah. It's just so different everywhere. So I don't have an answer for that.
Yeah. And I mean, when you look at all the data coming out now, all these studies that are being published around the mental health toll that social media in particular takes on kids, we have to be mindful of like, hey, are we contributing to that by trying to engage them in that space, that particular way? I mean, we probably just need to rethink our entire strategy around how we leverage social media and stop talking to kids and start talking to their parents who are on there anyway. Like start using those platforms to communicate with an audience that maybe developmentally is more able to handle those particular things than the 11, 12, 13-year-old whose mental health is suffering because of the amount of time they're spending on these things.
Yeah. I'm kind of with Charlie on this. I feel like once our oldest goes through middle school, I'll have an opinion. I don't know that I'll ever have an answer, but I think I'll have an opinion. Right now, I don't know. I mean, these are conversations that my wife and I are having about our own kids. Like, what are we going to do? When are they going to get a phone? Because the research is still out there. They're just now starting to figure out what this could look like. I mean, the Surgeon General just recently released a report and some guidelines when it comes to social. That's just social media specifically now with AI and everything else, and a generation that's going to grow up engaging in these things. I don't know, but what I do know and what I'm confident of is that as followers of Jesus, the holistic care of people matters. So if we see things that are having a negative effect, like Matt, you were saying, then they're things we should pay attention to. I mean, I think we can always encourage people to prioritize their mental health. Okay, let's do that. And then that comes to a place of, okay, for a 12th grader who's struggling with X, Y, or Z, is it best for them to be, scrolling TikTok for 3 hours a day? Maybe not. We can talk about it that way. But to have a definitive, like, this is the way for middle schoolers or not, I don't think we're there yet. And I don't know if we ever will be.
Well, if you're wrestling with this, I would love to hear what you think. And if you've been having conversations with parents, I definitely feel like I want more opinions on it. Yeah. So I'm trying to figure that out and navigate it as somebody who sits in a position that creates resources for people who work with middle schoolers. It's like, I get asked this all the time from church leaders, like, what are we doing in the middle school space with social media? And it's like, we're trying to, I don't know. We're rethinking it. You were about to say something.
I forgot.
Okay. I have a second thing I want to throw on the table.
That data just came out recently.
Yeah, the Surgeon General stuff.
Yeah.
I just had it.
And the American Psychological Association?
Yes.
Also released a report.
Yep.
And they're all saying the same thing. Like everybody, it's just a different take on the same thing. Yeah. I mean, in my mind, I'm like, we probably would do well to train parents, regardless of their attitude on it. Either they are so against it that they're unwilling to allow their children to be in that space, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Or they have the other end of the spectrum, they have no rules at all.
Yeah.
I think we can say something to help parents on both ends, because the parent who's not allowing anything is probably having a lot of fights and a lot of arguments, and there's a lot of tension in their home. Because of that particular stance, and we can help that parent navigate that.
That's good.
The parent on the other end, like, we can't put our heads in the sand either and just ignore it and be like, okay, this is no big deal. My kid will figure it out. No, like, there's something that a parent can do and say, and I think we can do a good job of potentially resourcing them. Resourcing them with what? I have no idea.
Yeah, we're working on it, right? We're working on it.
We're rethinking it.
Yes.
We're rethinking it.
We're going to collaborate on this, y'all, once we figure this out. But okay, the next thing I want to throw on the table, in looking at the statistics of Gen Z, Gen Alpha, the most diverse generations that have ever walked this planet. In my interactions in other cultures, other nations, what partnering with parents looks like is drastically different.
Yeah.
I'm so curious, like, how you navigate this in your context, because I did not know a lot of the things I've learned in cross-cultural experiences with other families and the family dynamic and the family unit and the way you communicate and all of the things. Like, it's totally blown my mind in the best way. But I feel like it's something we need to be all talking about, because our population is just going to get more diverse.
Yep.
Families are more diverse, and there are more cultures and nations involved. So what does that look like looking forward?
Yep.
And I don't know. Tell me how you navigate
Yeah, I
that.
defer to Matt, who has half of the world attending his
Half
church.
of the world.
I think is what he said. Almost.
That's a flex, man.
I did not say half the world.
But it is, man. 75.
We
We found
did.
out. We found
You
out.
guys did. It's all good. It's all good.
Our incredible producers found out that there's 180,
95.
195 nations in the world, and you have 75 of them in your church.
And that means it's never easy and it's never fast. There are no quick solutions, and there's not one thing that works for everybody.
Wow.
So the thing we have to keep in mind is everything takes time, because there's perspectives that we want to make sure we take time to understand.
Yeah.
Which goes back to what
really
I said
good.
before about listening.
Yeah.
You want to learn how to navigate cultural differences really well. Find people of that culture, sit down with them, let them talk, and don't say anything. Or come with really good questions and be prepared to just listen to their answers.
Good.
And then have the questions you came prepared with, be prepared to throw those away and go where they take you.
Yeah.
Because if you want to really truly understand it, you can read about it in a book and that's fine or whatever, but sitting down with people, across from people while they're doing life and understanding the values that they have, the stuff that matters and the things they're trying to do, that more than anything else will teach you how to navigate those spaces really
So
well.
true.
Because you're right, partnering with parents who come from an Asian culture is very different than partnering with parents who come from a Western culture, that come from an American culture, which is its own thing. Hey, I need to stop for a second because I was going down a road I don't think we need to go down. Taking the time out to listen and connect with parents in meaningful ways will help you see them in a way that you can partner with them
Yeah.
effectively. So it's different strokes for different folks, and you need to take time to understand what those things are.
I love that.
It's good.
Because a lot of times, like if a parent isn't responding to you when you're trying to reach out, it may be because you need to actually physically show up at their door, because
Yes.
they're not going to answer an email, a text message, or
Yeah.
a phone call. In their culture, you are expected to show up at the door, or they're not going to talk to you because they're not the matriarch of the family.
That's it.
And so like knowing who do you talk to? How do you talk to them? Like what is like, we have to be continuously learning. It's just so fascinating how culture and family blend, and like in ways that I never would have imagined. And it's given me such handlebars for like the family unit in my own culture as I learn about other cultures and what that looks like. So
That's good.
Yeah, we do this thing in our church called the Genogram. Basically, you map out your family going back 2 or 3 generations.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting to sit down and see the way people perceive different events in the life of their family, the different cultural experiences that come into play that shape the way they view the world. I mean, when you can walk with a family through an exercise like that, I mean, you're understanding your great grandparents shaped the way that you were parenting today. There are things that happened in your family going back 2 and 3 generations that you are still doing now as a parent, and you may not have even realized it at all. Like, this is deep work. But it's so important, because it helps you see the people that we're navigating life with, that we're navigating faith with. We really have to take the time out to invest in parents. It's not, if you have a quick solution, I'm going to encourage you to slow down and do something different, because the quick fix, the fast thing is probably not doing as much as you think it is.
Yeah. That's good.
It's really good. I can't imagine how you train your volunteers. That gets me so excited.
We don't train them.
You just like turn them
no.
loose.
It's like, just go.
Yeah. He's kidding.
let us know what you
He's
figure out.
joking, everyone.
Oh, he was?
I hope
You hope what?
you
Were
train
you
your
joking?
volunteers.
Well, I mean, a little bit. We train volunteers.
There was judgment. He's like, he's
But
kidding.
He's like, oh my gosh, please don't tell me you're on this podcast
know,
and you've
Matt.
never trained a volunteer.
Yeah.
Wait.
You equip your
Let him
volunteers.
explain. Let him
Okay.
explain.
So here's the thing. We train volunteers, but we are operating with a little bit it's kind of like a cheat code in our context, because these people are bringing this understanding, given that they're from all these cultures.
Yeah.
They're coming with this idea, I need to understand, I need to listen, I need to take time because I get it. Because my neighbor, who I live right next door to, is from the other side of the world that I've never even been to, and I hear what's happening with their family all the time.
Yes.
And so on
Yeah.
and so on.
Yeah.
That
So
makes sense.
we don't have to do like the deep dive training
Yeah.
as though they're operating from zero knowledge
Yeah,
base.
yeah.
But we do some training. Yeah.
I meant more generally, just you train your volunteers.
Oh, yes. Yes,
There we go.
They receive the training.
Even the way we talk to our students about what they can talk to their parents about.
Yes.
It's wild, because I remember when I was on a mission trip with a group of middle school students, and they were on the trip with, it was the middle schooler and their dad. It was a whole team of them. That's what I got to lead. Isn't that fun? Okay. So we were in Uganda serving, and I remember each evening, we would give 3 questions, and the dad and son would go, or the dad and kid, it could be a daughter too. The dad and kid would go have a conversation about those 3 questions about the day. They would process the day together. They would share things together. And it was a 45-minute window. They had to have a conversation around the campus. And during that time, I'm like just hanging out with, the ministry leaders that were on the ground. And I remember them asking me like, wait, what are they talking about? And I would tell them some of the questions. Like one of the questions, for example, was like, what's one of the biggest struggles you had when you were in middle school? And I remember the guys, the ministry leaders were like, the dads are going to talk to their kid about that. Mm. And then, and in almost like a surprise of like, they would have that kind of conversation. And it was such a moment for me, because I'm like, oh, is that not normal? Like, and then I thought to myself, oh my gosh, like how many times have I stood on a stage and said, you should talk to your parent about that, which would be great. But also I'm like, do I even have information about your family dynamic to know, like, is this even an honorable thing for me to tell you to do?
Yeah. Within your culture context. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I do think that there's something unifying, although there are all of these cultural differences that we need to pay attention to, and I think we need to study and dive into. Pew Research released some research recently around parents, and I think more and more the parents that we're serving are millennials, because Gen Z and Gen Alpha have millennial parents. Yeah. It's really interesting. 52%, this is Pew Research Center, their report found that 52% of millennials say that being a good parent is one of the most important things in life. And then with that, more than half, so 57% of fathers now say parenting is extremely important to their identity. That's only 1 percentage point less than mothers. And fathers now spend 3 times as much time with their children as they did 2 generations ago. So the reason why I'm saying this is, although we should be students of all of the different cultures, all the different contexts, we need to dive into that. What if this was our unifying thing as we're approaching parents, where we chose to assume that this really, really matters to them? Yeah. That regardless of their culture and context, they want to get this right. Yep. And if we took that posture, that would cause us to learn the different contexts, because we're going to go, oh, how can we help them get it right in their context? It would help us to approach them not with judgment, but with curiosity. Yeah. There's something about that type of data that's really centering to go, okay, parents really care. Yeah.
They do. I've learned that. Well, thank you all so much for this conversation. I feel like we could continue it. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're rethinking something when it comes to youth ministry, we would love to rethink it with you. So please reach out, DM us. We'll see you soon.